Ethan had been moving through the quiet days of late summer in Vermont with a heaviness he could not shake, because ever since his breakup with Emily 3 months earlier, everything in his life felt quieter, slower, and strangely empty, and even though he kept telling himself that time would fix things, the truth was that his heart still reacted to small memories, like seeing a couple laughing at the grocery store or hearing the song Emily used to hum while making tea, and that heaviness made him notice things at home more than usual, including how Olivia and Ryan, his younger siblings, suddenly developed a strange obsession with the old wooden gazebo in the backyard. At first he ignored it because he thought they were just bored and needed a project, but soon their behavior became too suspicious to overlook. They kept rushing outside as soon as the sun started dropping, sometimes carrying bags of craft supplies, sometimes quietly arguing in whispers, and every time Ethan tried to follow them, they pretended they were only cleaning or trying something fun, but they avoided his eyes every time they said it, and that made him even more curious. One evening he came home earlier than usual after leaving work tired and frustrated from a day that felt too long, and when he walked past the living room window, he noticed the faint glow of soft string lights flickering from the gazebo, lights he did not remember anyone putting up. The small bulbs cast a warm haze that stood out in the darkening yard, the kind of light that felt gentle and emotional, almost like it belonged to a movie scene rather than the worn-down old structure behind their house. Ethan hesitated for several seconds, because part of him did not want to intrude on whatever secret Olivia and Ryan were hiding, but the other part of him, the lonely part that had been craving connection since his breakup, urged him to step outside and see what was really happening out there. The grass was cool under his shoes as he walked toward the gazebo, and the closer he got, the clearer it became that the siblings had been working on something far more meaningful than a simple decoration project. He heard soft laughter mixed with the rustle of fabric. He saw silhouettes moving behind the thin wooden beams, and he caught a glimpse of Olivia carefully placing a small candle on a table while Ryan tied a piece of white cloth to one of the posts. Ethan paused at the entrance, hidden behind the outer frame, and, for a moment he felt an unexpected mix of confusion and warmth, because everything inside looked surprisingly beautiful, almost magical in a way. The candles flickered gently, the white curtains moved with the wind, and the scattered fairy lights reflected softly against the wood, making the entire place glow like a tiny sanctuary. He watched Olivia adjust the curtains with surprising care, as if she were preparing for something important, and Ryan stepped back to examine the setup with a seriousness Ethan had rarely seen on his younger brother's face. Ethan wondered why they were doing all of this without telling him, and for a moment he wondered whether they were planning a surprise for someone, maybe a friend, maybe a school project, maybe something silly, but the emotion in their movements suggested something deeper, something personal, and when Ryan turned his head and unexpectedly saw Ethan standing there in the doorway, the atmosphere shifted in an instant. Olivia gasped slightly, Ryan froze halfway through adjusting a lantern, and both of them exchanged a look that seemed to say, "Should we tell him now?" Before Olivia stepped forward with a soft, almost gentle smile, she looked nervous but also relieved, like she had been waiting for this moment. She walked closer and said, "Ethan, come in please," in a tone that held more tenderness than usual, and Ethan, still unsure of what he was walking into, stepped inside without saying anything. He felt something in his chest loosen as he took in the sight around him, because despite not knowing why they had done this, the warm lights and peaceful setup made him feel something he had not felt in a long time. A sense of calm, a sense of being cared for. And as he stood there in the softly glowing space, Olivia and Ryan shared another quiet glance before Olivia said, "We were waiting for you." Those words carried a strange and emotional weight, and Ethan felt a sudden surge of questions rise inside him, but at the same time he sensed that the answer behind this whole secret was connected to something deeper than he could guess. Something that would touch the part of him he had been trying so hard to protect since the breakup. And as he looked around the transformed gazebo, illuminated with gentle light and filled with details that looked chosen with care and love, he realized that whatever his siblings were hiding, it was meant for him, meant to comfort him, meant to guide him toward something he did not yet understand, and that realization stirred something warm inside him, a flicker of hope he had not felt in months, and just as he opened his mouth to ask why they had done all of this, Olivia placed a hand on his arm and whispered, "Everything will make sense soon," leaving him standing in the soft glow of the gazebo, both confused and strangely moved, unaware that the truth behind their secret would soon pull him into the most emotional surprise of his life, one that involved someone he thought he had already lost forever. Ethan stood inside the warm glow of the gazebo, still unsure why Olivia and Ryan had created such a soft and beautiful space for him, and his confusion grew when he noticed a folded card on the small wooden table, his name written on the front in Olivia's familiar handwriting, and when he opened it, his breath caught because inside were gentle, heartfelt words that felt too thoughtful to be a simple decoration project. Ryan had written that Ethan deserved to feel loved again, that his siblings had watched him struggle quietly for months, and they wanted to make something that reminded him he wasn't alone. But the card also said something that made Ethan's heartbeat pick up. Someone asked us to help. And that single line changed everything because the moment he read it, he felt a strange rush of nervous energy, as if some part of him already knew who that someone might be, but he refused to let himself believe it until he saw the second envelope tucked under a small vase in the corner. A pale envelope with a handwriting he recognized instantly, Emily's handwriting, the one he had stared at dozens of times when they were together, the one that had written him birthday notes, grocery reminders, late-night "I miss you" messages, and seeing her handwriting again made his chest tighten with a mix of longing and fear. He opened the envelope slowly, afraid of whatever might be inside, afraid that reading it would bring back everything he had been trying to bury, and the moment he unfolded the letter, the emotions hit him at once. Emily's words were soft but full of weight. She wrote about regret, about wishing she had handled things differently. She admitted she ran away from the relationship because she was overwhelmed by fear and responsibilities she had never talked about. She confessed that she had pushed him away not because she stopped loving him, but because she did not know how to let him see her flaws without feeling like she would disappoint him. Ethan swallowed hard, reading each sentence as if it were pulling him back into a world he had fought to leave. She wrote that she still thought about him in the quiet moments of her day, that she still missed his voice and the way he calmed her during her worst moments. She wrote that she contacted Olivia and Ryan because she wanted to apologize face to face but was terrified that Ethan might reject her if she showed up without warning, and she asked them to create a place that felt safe, warm, and loving so she could talk to him without breaking down. Ethan felt his hands shake as he read her final line. "If you choose not to see me, I'll understand, but if you're willing to hear me, I'll be there tonight." And suddenly the gazebo's glow felt warmer, heavier, almost like it was holding both his pain and his hope at the same time. Ethan tried to breathe normally, but emotions crashed through him one after another. He remembered the night they broke up, a night filled with misunderstandings, frustration, and words that came out too sharp, too fast, and afterward he had told himself that letting go was better than trying to fix something broken. But standing here now with Emily's letter trembling in his hands, he felt something inside him soften, something that had been tight and locked for months. Olivia stepped closer and gently placed a hand on his shoulder, her face full of compassion. She said they had been waiting for the right moment to show him the letters, that Emily had told them everything, that she had been working on herself, going to therapy, trying to understand why she sabotaged relationships she actually cared about, and Olivia told him that Emily didn't want to hurt him again. She only wanted to be honest. Ryan nodded quietly, explaining how Emily had visited them last week, terrified but determined, asking if they could help her create a moment where she could speak without pressure or anger. And Ethan realized his siblings had gone through so much trouble because they believed he deserved closure, or maybe a second chance. He felt overwhelmed. The air in the gazebo felt thicker as he tried to process everything, and before he could respond, Olivia whispered words that sent a chill down his spine. "She's coming tonight." Those words echoed in Ethan's mind as he stood frozen in place, his heart beat loud enough that he could feel it in his fingertips. He didn't know if he was ready to see Emily again. He didn't know if he could trust her after the heartbreak. He didn't know if opening himself up again would help him heal or hurt him even more. But he also couldn't deny that a tiny spark of hope had returned the moment he saw her handwriting, a spark he thought had disappeared forever. And just as he tried to steady himself, they all heard footsteps outside the backyard, slow and hesitant, crunching lightly against the gravel near the gate, footsteps that sent a familiar shiver through Ethan because he had heard them hundreds of times before, footsteps that belonged to someone whose presence he could recognize even in silence. And before he could prepare himself, the backyard gate creaked open, letting a thin streak of warm golden light from the street lamp spill across the grass, and Ethan felt his breath catch as a soft shadow appeared in the doorway, a figure he had loved, lost, and never truly forgotten, standing just a few steps away from walking back into his life. Emily stepped through the gate slowly, as if unsure she belonged in the soft glow of the backyard anymore. And when Ethan saw her silhouette framed by the warm lights, he felt something deep inside him shift, like an old door opening after months of being locked. She looked almost the same as he remembered, gentle eyes, quiet presence, a nervous way of holding her hands together. But there was something new about her too, something steadier, something that looked like growth, and when she finally stepped fully into the light, the gazebo around them grew silent, as if the world itself knew this moment carried weight. Ethan didn't move at first because he was caught between two emotions, the part of him that still loved her and the part that feared repeating the old pain. But Emily's eyes softened when she saw him, and she whispered his name the same way she used to when she was trying not to cry, and the sound of it made Ethan's chest tighten. Olivia and Ryan slipped quietly out of the gazebo, giving them space, leaving behind only the soft candlelight, the delicate curtains swaying in the breeze, and two people who once knew everything about each other but now stood unsure of how to begin again. Emily took a small step closer but stopped halfway, as if afraid of crossing an invisible line, and she said she didn't come to reopen wounds or force a reunion. She came because she owed him honesty, something she should have given him long before things fell apart. She explained how she had spent these past months trying to understand why she always ran when things became too real, how she had finally faced her own fears through therapy, journaling, and late-night reflections that kept her awake longer than she cared to admit. She talked about her childhood, about moments she had never shared with Ethan before, about how she learned to hide her emotions before anyone could abandon her, and how she didn't realize she brought that same fear into their relationship. Ethan listened quietly, hands trembling slightly at his sides, because hearing her speak so openly felt like watching someone place their entire heart on a table, fragile and exposed. She apologized for the way she had left, for the way her silence had created a deeper pain than any argument ever could, and she admitted that she still cared about him, maybe more now that she understood what she lost, but she also said she understood if he didn't want her back, that she would accept it, no anger, no pressure, only gratitude for the chance to finally speak her truth. Ethan felt the weight of her words and the sincerity in her voice. Memories of their time together flashed through his mind. The road trips where they laughed until their faces hurt, the rainy evenings where they sat by the window sharing tea, the quiet nights where being near her felt like the safest place in the world. And he realized that even though the heartbreak had been deep, the love had been just as real. He stepped closer, not closing the distance entirely, but enough so that she could see the conflict and emotion in his eyes. He told her that he had missed her in ways he tried hard to ignore, that her absence had changed the rhythm of his days. But he also reminded her that the breakup had hurt him deeply, that trust wasn't something he could hand back instantly, and she nodded, understanding, accepting, even if it hurt her to hear it. The wind picked up, brushing the curtains against their arms, the string lights flickered softly, and for a moment the gazebo felt like a small universe made only for the two of them. Emily's eyes filled with quiet hope as she whispered that she wasn't asking for an answer tonight. She only wanted the chance to try, slowly, gently, without repeating old mistakes, and Ethan felt something inside him respond to that sincerity, like a small spark of warmth that had been waiting to be acknowledged. He took another step closer until they were standing just a few feet apart, close enough to feel each other's presence but still giving themselves space to breathe, and he told her that he didn't know what the future held, but he wasn't ready to close the door either, and those words brought a soft, emotional relief to Emily's face, a look he had not seen since their happiest days. Before he could say more, warm summer rain began to fall, first a few drops, then a gentle steady shower, and the soft tapping of rain on the wooden roof filled the air with an almost cinematic rhythm. Emily let out a small nervous laugh, wiping her cheek, but Ethan wasn't sure whether it was rain or a tear. The lights shimmered against the growing rain and created a glow that wrapped around them like a warm memory, and in that moment the world felt quiet, delicate, and full of possibility. Ethan realized he had to make a choice. Not a final decision about their entire future, but a small one, a first step toward healing or closure, and as Emily waited, her eyes full of hope yet prepared for heartbreak, Ethan reached out slowly, gently, offering his hand not as a promise of forever but as a sign that he was willing to try, willing to listen, willing to begin again with patience and understanding. And the moment their hands touched lightly, the rain grew stronger, the world grew softer, and the night wrapped around them with the quiet tenderness of a second chance waiting to be written, leaving the story on the edge of something new, something fragile, something beautiful, and something that neither of them knew how to define yet.